Today, you're going to start towards the top of Yud Aleph Amud Beis. It's 11b. It's about five lines down. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Yosef Amar Rabbi Yehuda. Where's that? I was getting coffee. I just came up and sent that. So we're starting 11b by Amar Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Yosef Amar Rabbi Yehuda. It's very difficult Gemara at the end of today's daf. Wasn't able to work out. So either we'll work it out together or come on. It's like me back and forth. I can figure it out. Okay. Let's start. The beginning is fine. I'm Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Yosef. I'm Rabbi Yehuda. We thank Hashem that you're able to learn Torah every day. In the source of our learning, we should have the base of Mikdash immediately. So, Rabbi.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. So, Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Yosef says in the name of Rabbi Yehuda. Gimel Machlekes B'Davar. There's three arguments about this. We were talking about the last Gemara made a distinction between if a kaimetz of the levina, if you're missing some of the levina, we made a distinction between if that's the levina that comes together with the mincha, or if that's the levina that comes on its own. If it comes together with the mincha, then as long as there was a little left. If it comes on its own, comes on its own, then that was problematic. If a person pledges, he's just going to bring levina, and he doesn't bring exactly what he pledged. That was problematic. Okay. It says Gimel Machlekes B'Davar. There's three opinions about this. This is in the name of Rabbi Yehuda. Reb Meir Sava, Reb Meir, which is the author of our Mishnah, the Stam Mishnah of Reb Meir, he holds that what we need is kaimetz betchila or kaimetz b'soif. We're talking about the levina, and kaimetz betchila means kaimetz at the time of the kmitza. The time of the kmitza, you need to have a full kaimetz there of levina. We're talking about, don't get confused here. You're doing kmitza on the flour and oil, but at that time you need to have a full kaimetz there. The mincha needs to be complete, and included in the mincha is a kaimetz that's sitting on the top, on the side of frankincense. And then you also need a kaimetz b'seif. At the time when you're taking the kaimetz up to the altar to burn, you need to have the levina to be fully intact. It can't be lacking at all. We'll see how he learns this from the psukim. Rabbi Yehuda Savar kaimetz betchila. Rabbi Yehuda says, I agree that at the beginning, at the time when you're doing the kamitza on the mincha, you're doing the scoop on the mincha, you need to have a full kaimetz of levina there. However, when it comes to the end, shnei kratim b'seif, when it comes to burning the kaimetz on the altar, so you don't need a full kaimetz of levina at that time to be sitting on the mincha. You only need two pieces of levina left. Reb Shimon Savar kaimetz betchila v'karitachid b'seif. Reb Shimon holds almost like Rabbi Yehuda, except with one detail. Rabbi Yehuda holds that you need shnei kratim at the end, two pieces of the levina, and Reb Shimon holds you only need one. And we learn this all from one pasuk. The pasuk says, "Ve'is kol haLevina asher al hamincha." It says, and also the levina, that is all the levina that is on the mincha, is going to be burnt on the altar. Now, Reb Meir Savar ad the isal levina. It says you need the levina needs to be there. The ikva bahadi mincha mikar. You need to have the levina that was there originally. It needs to be there at the end. And it says, let's take a look at that pasuk. Ve'is kol haLevina asher al hamincha v'ikra bav. We have which one? 6:8. So this is the laws of the mincha offering. Aaron's son should bring it before God to the front of the altar. He should take out 3-finger fistful from the fine flour of the meal offering and from its oil. Afterwards, he should gather all the frankincense that is on the meal offering. He should make the scoop and the frankincense go up and smoke on the altar, that its owner will be remembered positively before God, a pleasant aroma for God. So the pasuk says, "V'hire mimena bekumtzu misel mincha mishamna ve'es kol halavayna," and also all the lavayna that is on the mincha is going to be burnt on the altar. The kaimetz and the lavayna is going to be burnt on the altar. So what he says is like this: the mayor holds when it says "ve'es kol halavayna shel mincha," he learns that it needs to be everything. You need to have the levina intact from the beginning to the end. It says in all the levina, it's kol levina. Talking about burning the scoop, but how much? We weren't talking about the scoop was lacking. The scoop, if it's lacking, it's puzzle. There's machlekes about if the levina is lacking, it's puzzle. The whole mincha is the remnant of the mincha. There's a big bowl here. In the bowl, from the bowl, I take up a scoop and of flour and oil. And the levina, I separate. That's also there on the top. If it's on the side, I separate that, and I burn these two, the scoop of levina and the scoop of the mincha. I'm going to burn it on the altar. Now, how much of the scoop of the levina needs to be left? Let's say while you're carrying it, some fell off, it got lost a little bit. So Reb Meir says it needs to be all of it. It says kol halavina. It says all of it. However, Rabbi Yehuda Savar kol afilu kairet es l'rabbis kairet acher. Kol afilu chad kairet. That's what it says. Es is l'rabbis kairet acher. Now, I never would have understood this, but Rashi says he quotes a pasuk. The pasuk says when the woman that needed money, she was supporting her husband was supporting the borrowed money to support the wife of Avadia, to support the prophets, and other they were coming to take the child, or maybe if she doesn't pay up the loan. So the prophet says, what do you have in the house? He says, Ein l'shivchasich kol babayas. Your maidservant doesn't have everything in the house. Now, she didn't mean everything. She meant anything. But she used the word kol. Kol, in Hebrew, means everything. So, however, the way that Rabbi Yehuda is learning the word kol in our pasuk doesn't mean everything, but he's learning it the way kol means in the Navi, where kol means anything. So when it says veis kol halavayna and anything of the levina, it doesn't mean all the levina, everything of the levina. He means anything of the levina. Yeah, you hear this pshat? It's an interesting pshat in the word kol. So anything of the levina. Now, if that's the case, then you only need one drop. He says, yeah, you really only need one drop. But however, it says ace kol levina. The word ace is coming to teach me a second drop. 2 drops of the levina. Kol plus ace is going to be 2 drops. Comes along Reb Shimon Eslei Darish. Reb Shimon is left with 1 drop of the levina. They only need ultimately on the mincha. You have to start the mincha properly. You said you pledge the mincha. Has to start properly. But when it comes to offering it up on the altar, it's still going to be valid if the levina is missing, as long as there's 1 drop left, according to Reb Shimon, 2 drops, according to Reb Yehuda. 2 particles. Yeah, Reb Yehuda. Yeah. We're quoting Reb Yehuda. Okay. We have another statement from Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Yosef. This is in the name of Rabbi Yechanan, which goes like this: This discussion that you just told me, that there's a machlekes about how much levina needs to be left, that's talking about with levina that comes together with the meal offering. But if someone actually pledged levina, everyone would agree that you need to have the amount that you pledged. That's why in the pasuk that we quoted, We have a discussion over there what the word kol means, but that's only the kol that's on the mincha. However, if it's not on a mincha, then everyone would agree the bahadi mincha in b'fnei atzmalai. That discussion is only if it's together with the mincha, but if it's coming on its own, then we would say differently. Another statement from Rabbi Yechanan. Machlekes b'levaina ba mel mincha, aval levaina ba b'bezichen divrei kol shnei kamatzim etfila shnei kamatzim b'seif. This discussion that we had is. How are you feeling? Okay. Just better. Get my lungs. What was that? There was a Yiddish expression. Das by a nichter is even long, by a shikker even song. You ever heard that? It meant that what a sober person has on his lung, a drunk has on his tongue. Okay. So, the levina that comes together with the lechem apanim is going to be different. Everyone agrees that over here you're going to need, even though, look, the lechem apanim is flour and water. Is there oil in it? I don't remember. It's matzah. It's not chametz, right? But and there's levina. So it sounds like it's levina that's coming together with the mincha, right? There's levina. There's 2 spoons, each one containing a scoopful of frankincense, and it's there on the table. And you take it off and you burn the levina and you eat the lachem apanim. The kohanim eat the lachem apanim. So I could have thought like this. I could have thought that what do we say by levina that comes together with the mincha, that you don't need to have the full thing intact as long as you had it there originally. If it gets lost later, don't worry about it. As long as you have a little bit left. Call anything, as long as there's anything left. However, it comes on Rabbi Yechanan and says it's not true. That's only by an actual mincha that has levina. But by the lechem apanim, which also has levina over there, it's totally different. You need to have actually full scoops from beginning to end. Even when it gets burnt on the altar, it needs to be full. Pshita, it says it's obvious. It doesn't say the word kol, and so obviously we know that. It says no. Malmad the tem given the bahadi lechem asi kasher la mincha dami kamash malan. It says no. I could have thought that since it comes together with bread, so I could have thought that it's just like the mincha. That's just like a levina that comes together with the mincha, where we said there was opinions that were more lenient. Kamash malan, that we don't say that here. There are no more lenient opinions. It has to be the full position.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Didn't we learn that if the time just came to take the levana,
exactly,
that was already okay? So there's no
right.
talking about whether there's a little amount. I mean, afterwards. So it's totally different situation.
Okay. There's a machlekes between Rabami and Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha. These are students of Rabbi Yechanan. We didn't mention this before, but it turns out that there is an opinion in Eretz Yisrael that just like there's a machlekes by the mincha that comes together with the levina that comes together with the mincha, that there are some lenient opinions. Let's say even if you don't have the full amount, it's still going to be acceptable at the end. So too, if someone offers independently just levina without a mincha, there is an opinion that holds that even if you don't have the full amount at the end, it's still acceptable as long as you had that at the beginning. Okay. We had an interesting thing in the Mishnah. We said if you have too much oil or too little oil, or if you have too little levina, then it's possible. We didn't mention that we left out the obvious. If you have too much levina, we didn't say anything about that. In cases that it's different, you're talking about if he brings the levina independently. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it has to do with the vessel. I'm not sure. Well, it was already in the vessel. It was on top of the mincha. It was there in that vessel. When they take it off to burn it, they put it into another vessel. I know the kaimetz was a machlekes if the kaimetz needs to go into another vessel. We had a discussion about that, like tanaim. You have to, if you can put the kaimetz directly on the fire, if you have to put it into a vessel. What about the levina? Did the levina have to go into another vessel? Remember, we discussed that. So now we're going to discuss the obvious omission from the Mishnah of the case if there's too much levina. There's too much oil, we discussed, it's going to be puzzle. What about too much levina? So, hayater ksheira. Sounds like, from the fact that we omitted that case, that it would be kosher if there's too much levina. But Hatanya, the problem is we have a brisa that says yater psula. There's too much, it's going to be puzzle. So the diuk of our Mishnah contradicts what it's explicit in the brisa. Amar Rami Bar Chama. Rami Bar Chama explains, going shehifr slashnei kamatzim. Depends. If you added a lot, if you had a double amount of levina, then it's going to be puzzle. If it's not a double amount, then we'll say, like what it says in our Mishnah, it's going to be kosher. So how will we resolve the contradiction? We'll say it depends on the scenario. Depends on how much you added. That's how you resolve. The easiest way to resolve a contradiction is a different story. Amar Rami Bar Chama says, and he also says, let's say the designation over here when it was made was that he added 2 kaimetz of levina, which the mincha only requires 1. He separated 2. However, one of the 2 got lost. So it's loy hukva. It wasn't established yet as a mincha, and so therefore the extra levina doesn't bother us because when the kmitza was done, you had already lost the. Okay.
So you don't hit the
All right. So it's not a problem because the carbon mincha wasn't established yet until the kmitza, according to this opinion. Achar kmitza, however, once the kmitza is done, then hukvu, and you still have the 2 scoopfuls of frankincense, then that would already be invalid because that's considered yatir, too much. Rami Bar Chama says, let's say you designated 4 kaimetz of levina for the 2 spoonfuls that came together with the showbread. But 2 got lost. Before the bezichen were removed. Now, Dr. Stein would tell us before the time for the bezichen to be removed, probably, which maybe that's the pshat. So hukvu. I'm sorry, loy hukvu. Before the bezichen were removed, you lost the extra ones. Then it's not a problem. Everything is still kosher. Because when does it become like established to be this is the mincha? That's only when the bezichen are taken off. When the bezichen are taken off the table, that's like the kmitza is being done on a regular mincha. But if it's after the time, then hukvu. The Gemara says, Hasu lamali. Why do we need this extra case? I know hach. This is exactly the same story. The silik bezichen is exactly like kaimetz. Well, ma the tema kivan the barer kaimetz didei kivan she gives man al parka command the parka dami. Over there, when it comes to a regular kmitza by a carbon mincha, where exactly are you going to take the spoon, the scoopful? This side, that side, this side, that side. It's not buttered. It's not clear which scoopful you're going to get. You're going to do the scoopful, and then you'll have a scoopful. But before that, it's not clear. But when it comes to lechem upon him, the scoopful is already designated because it's already held being contained in 2 spoons. So you already have it already. So I could have thought that what do you need to remove it off the table to be considered the kmitza? Once the time comes to take it off the table, right? It should already be considered done. Kamash Malana comes to tell me that no, it's only considered done once it's actually removed. It may be different than the way we learned previously. Okay. There's another pshat. Rashi says he doesn't hear that pshat. Okay. The new Mishnah. It's a long Mishnah, but it's actually an easy Mishnah, especially for those that learned Zvachim. I think it's an exact repeat of the Mishnah in Zvachim, with just one variation. It's Chazara. What daf in Zvachim is this? Sure. Yeah, Zvachim Yud Gimel. Okay. Hakaimetz esa mincha lechol shirea bachutz ekazayis mishrea bachutz lak the kaimtza bachutz ekazayis kaimtza bachutz lak levenasu bachutz pasoleim bekaris lechol shem lemacher ekazayis mishrea lemacher lak the kaimtza lemacher ekazayis kaimtza lak leven lemacher pigel v'cheven lekaris. Okay, I'll go through this carefully, but it's actually quite simple. The rule is that pigel is thoughts of eating or burning part of the offering, the appropriate part that's supposed to be eaten, they're supposed to be burned, but out of its allotted time. If you're given one day to eat it, and you have thoughts of eating it tomorrow, so then that while you're doing one of the earlier services of the offering, so then that would invalidate it to the extent that it would be called pigel. The rule of pigel is that if someone tries to eat the pigel, he's going to end up getting karis, and what else? If it's b'shegig, he has to bring a chatas. It's pretty serious. It's like eating on Yom Kippur. He eats this. And what makes it pigel? The thoughts that the part of the service was going to be done or eaten out of the allotted time. That's different than if he has thoughts of doing part of the service out of the allotted place. One is called chutz lezmanai. Zman means time, and chutz l'mkaimai is out of its allotted place. If it's out of its allotted place, then although it's going to be puzzle, but it's not pigel. It doesn't have karis. You're not allowed to eat it. You invalidated the sacrifice just because of those thoughts, but it's not karis. Someone that eats it. I'm not talking about the karis isn't on the kayan that thought it. The karis goes on the punishment of excision goes on the person that eats from what the kayan had thought, the improper thoughts. It's not the thoughts that cause the karis. It's the eating it when it was not made properly. The kayan would have to tell him, yeah. According to one opinion which we had in the beginning of Zvachim, I think we had Rashi or someone that when we say thoughts, we actually mean speech. So then everyone would know because he makes an announcement, like the old-fashioned advertisements. This is mint tea, Coca-Cola. This is Coca. I am smoking Marlboro. So before they separate and they divide it up. Right. Either that or whatever. So now, one of the rules that we have by pigel, this is ironic, but the only way for something to be pigel is if everything, no, the only way to make it really, really puzzle is if everything is kosher. If you mess it up in a second way, then it doesn't become pigel. It becomes just plain puzzle, not pigel. So now the Mishnah starts off. It says, "Hakaimetz esa mincha." Let's start over the Mishnah. If someone does the kmitza on the mincha, and his intention is, we're going to have four possible services. The first service is the kaimetz. He does the kmitza. He does the scoop. And his intention is to eat le'echol sherea bachutz, to eat the remnant of the mincha not in the proper location. Mincha is kodesh kadashim. It needs to be eaten in the temple courtyard. He thinks while he's doing the kmitza that this would be a great snack on the temple mount, out of the courtyard, or in Yerushalayim, somewhere over there. So, or not all the shirayim. He has thoughts just to eat a kazayas of the shirayim, somewhere on the Temple Mount, somewhere in the streets of Yerushalayim. Okay, now, let's say he doesn't have the thoughts of eating the shirayim, but he has thoughts of lahakter kaimtza b'chutz. He has intention not to eat, but to burn the kaimetz, which is supposed to go on the altar. He has intention to burn it outside. Or he has intention not to burn the kaimetz, but he has intention to burn the levina outside the appropriate place, which is on the altar. He decides he's going to burn it outside the temple. Pasul vein bekars. All of this, because it's chutz l'mkaimai, the thoughts were out of its allotted place, it doesn't turn it into pigel. However, let's say the same case, but let's just switch the one variable here. If he says, if he has intention, lechol shirei l'machar, Not that he's going to eat it on the Temple Mount. He's going to eat it in the right place. He's going to eat it in the courtyard. But instead of today, I'm going to eat this tomorrow. I'm full today. I already had the snack from someone's chatas and shlamim. I'll eat this today. I'm no carbs. So I'm going to eat tomorrow the mincha. Or not, he's going to eat it tomorrow, but he's going to burn the kaimitz tomorrow. Not the whole kaimitz, but just the kazayas of the kaimitz. I wonder how many kazayas you can fit in a kaimitz. Maybe 2. Or I'm going to burn the levain al tomorrow, and instead of burning it today. All of those are cases of pigul v'chayavan of kares. Those are pigul, and this chayav kares. Zehaklal. The rule is kalakaimet. Listen to these four steps of the carbon mincha. Kalakaimet. Anyone that does the kmitza, or nice and bekeli, or puts it into the vessel. The scoop puts it into the vessel. Hamelech, he walks it up to the altar. Hamakter, he burns it on the altar. These 4 steps correspond to the 4 services of a regular animal sacrifice, which is the shchita, kabbalah, halacha, and zrika. So corresponding to that, we have 4 steps in the mincha: the kmitza, the matan keli, which is like kabbalah, and then the halacha, which is exactly like halacha, and then there's the haktara, which is corresponding to the zrika. If he does any of these things, if he has intention to do any of these services out of its allotted place and it's possible vein bekars, it's possible and there's no kars. But if it's out of its allotted time, then it's pigul v'chayavan of kares. It's pigul and it's chayav kares. What are you showing me, Dr. Stein? With beware of Kamala near the road. Oh, camels. Okay, beware of camels near the road. Is that a real sign? So, okay. So, as long as you're makriv the mater k'mitzvasi, as long as the part that allows this sacrifice, that makes this sacrifice valid, was done properly, which means, as we said before, that in order for it to be pigul, you can't mess any other part of this up. It has to be, everything needs to be pristine, except for the one pigul thing, that pigul part that made it pigul. What would be an example of this? Kamatz b'shtika. He does kmitza without thoughts of any thoughts that would invalidate it. However, nasan bekeli, puts it into the vessel, or haylach v'hikter, maybe it's not, or maybe it's and walks it and offers it chutz l'zmani, out of the allotted time. So everything was kosher except for what he did wrong, which was thoughts of chutz l'zmani. He should come at chutz l'zmani, or maybe did the kmitza chutz l'zmani. He started off with the wrong thought. However, nasan bekeli v'halach v'hikter b'shtika, and then when it came to putting into the vessel, he did it all silently. Or maybe he messed all of it up, but not with any other thoughts. It was the only one thought that messed this up would be the chutz l'zmani thought, which is the pigul thoughts. This is an example of doing everything properly except for that one problem, which was the pigul. What would be the opposite? What would be a case where you did not do it properly? That would be kamatz choslam kaimai. The kmitza, you had thoughts of choslam kaimai. I'm going to eat this on the Temple Mount, outside the temple courtyard. And then when it comes to the second parts of the service, he does it all with thoughts of pigul. So he messed it up already with choslam kaimai, by the kmitza. Or shekamatz chotzos, or maybe he starts off with the pigul thoughts. And then when he finishes the services, he has thoughts of out of its allotted place. Or maybe did the whole thing chutzim kaimai. That is when it's not becoming pigul because it wasn't done in its pristine kosher status, except for that one thing that messes it up. Minchas chayti, minchas knais are going to give us one other possibility of invalidating a mincha, because we said normally if a mincha has thoughts, the person has thoughts of when he's doing the mincha for a different sacrifice, so then we said that it was still valid. The mincha was valid, but the owner needed to bring another one. but it didn't invalidate the mincha. The mincha could still be eaten, etc., and the kaimitz was burned. However, by the minchas chayte, minchas kanayis, we didn't say that. We said that just like by a carbon chatas, if you have thoughts that you're bringing it for an oila or a shlamim, you invalidate the chatas. So too, by the minchas chayte, by the chatas that comes as a meal offering, also if you have thoughts of another sacrifice, it's totally invalid. So now we have another possibility of ruining a pigel. Pigel is already messed up, but turning it not pigel because he messed it up with something else by having thoughts of a different sacrifice. By these two sacrifices, it would be these two offerings. It would work like that. Shekamtzon shlei lishman. If the kmitza was done for a different sacrifice, nasam mekelev elach v'chutz l'shmanei, and then you had pigel thoughts. Oh, you should come at chutz l'shmanei nasam mekelev elach v'chutz shlei lishman, or maybe you had pigel thoughts first, and then when you did the rest of the service, you had thoughts of a different sacrifice. Oh, you should come at nasam mekelev elach v'chutz shlei lishman, or maybe you had totally thoughts the entire time of a different sacrifice. Zeush like karav hamatik mitzvasei. This is this is a case where the mater wasn't brought properly. The mater is what allows it to become permissible, that the kaimitz should be taken out and brought on the altar and burnt on the altar properly. Lechol kazayas bachutz kazayas l'machar. Let's say he has thoughts of he's going to do a kazayas inside and a kazayas later tomorrow. A kazayas outside and a kazayas tomorrow. Kazayas l'machar, kazayas bachutz. A kazayas, an olive size tomorrow, and a kazayas outside. So he's really messing this up in two ways by taking a kazayas this way and a kazayas that way. One is chutz l'zman and one is chutz l'mkayme. But notice over here, what's important for us to recognize is that we're not making a distinction between which one came first. We're not establishing it as pigel because the pigel was first. If afterwards came a chutz l'mkayme, we don't establish it as chutz l'mkayme. Actually, we do. Once there's any chutz l'mkayme in there, it becomes not pigel. That's the dominant violation here is the chutz l'mkayme. The chutz l'zmanai is the recessive. You only see it if you have both. If you have everything, right? I don't know if that's a good example, but okay, it works. Yeah. Let's say he divides it up. A half a zayas tomorrow and a half a zayas. A half a zayas chutz l'mkayme, a half a zayas chutz l'zmanai. Kechatzi zayas l'machar, kechatzi zayas bachutz, or he does it the opposite way. Pasal vein bekar. So all of these is going to be pasal because there's thoughts of chutz l'mkayme in it. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda says, Aklal. Rabbi Yehuda argues. He says, no, I'll give you the rule. If the thoughts of the time, which means the pigel thoughts, precede the thoughts of chutz l'mkayme, then it's pigel v'chem l'kars, then it's pigel. Because that came first, it's already pigel. What you did later, it doesn't make you can't kasher something from being pigel. It already became pigel with those thoughts. In machshavas hamakim, kadam machshavas hazman, then it's possible in mikar. However, if you had thoughts of chutz l'mkayme first, then you're not going to make it pigel. It was already possible. The Chum say no. Doesn't matter which way it goes. It's always going to be puzzle. It's the dominant is going to be the chutz l'mkayme out of its allotted place. There won't be cars. Okay. I'm not sure, but that was a discussion. But usually, this machlekes chacham and Rabbi Yehuda will follow the chacham. Iboilo. They have a question. Yeshiva has a question. According to the one that says Shiraim shechasr ben kmitz laktar mak kmitz aleim. We had an opinion of Maseches Menachos Daf a few days ago. If the remnants of the mincha get lost, part of the remnants get lost, are you still allowed to offer the kaimitz up? So Rabbi Yochanan said yes, you will offer them. So according to Rabbi Yochanan, that says after the kmitza was done, and a little bit got lost. He holds makta kaimitz aleim, that you can take the kaimitz up to the altar and burn it. And we've established that even though you're allowed to burn the kaimitz, but it doesn't mean that you're allowed to eat those shirayim. We say that you can't eat those shirayim. You can't eat it. Now, Mahu de tahani lu aktara lemekvinu bepigol ulefkinu midei meila. the way something becomes pigul is when you offer up the kazayas, you offer up the kaimetz properly on the altar, which is in this case, he's taking the kaimetz and he's offering it on the altar. Now it turns out that the shirayim are not eligible to be eaten because it's not intact, but nevertheless you still offer it up. So he's asking, that offering it up that you do, is that significant enough that it will make that if it's offered up in a way of with thoughts of pigul, that will it make this pigul? Even though there's another invalidation going on, where it's chaser, it's missing. We said any other invalidation won't work. And then another aspect to this is, what about leaving the laws of Me'ila? Me'ila is you're not allowed to have personal benefit from things that belong to the temple. What happens now, so when it comes to a mincha, is that it belongs to the temple. It's sacred until the kaimetz is offered on the altar. Once it's offered on the altar, then the laws of Me'ila drop off, and then you're allowed to eat from it. Right? It belongs to the kayanim. Originally, it belongs to Hashem. And then after you give the kaimetz to Hashem off the Hashem's table, right? Or mishulchan gavaya kazach, the kayanim are allowed to eat it, and the laws of Me'ila drop. So what happens when you're offering it up now in a way where it's still invalid to eat, unacceptable to eat? Do you say that it's still pigul, and will the laws of Me'ila leave it? So we have two opinions over here. And these two opinions, each one is going to say that although there's a machlekes about this, but both opinions will agree with me. We start with Rav Huna. Amar Rav Huna, afilu Rabbi Kiva, damar zrika me'elas liyotzei. We had a discussion. If you do zrika, sprinkle the blood for a karban that has left the temple, we say that at that point the laws of Me'ila are going to go off for the parts of the meat that left the temple. Kiva holds yes. He says, Hani mili yoitze. That's only because it left the temple. The isa be'ene, because it's still intact. It has some other invalidation here, and that other invalidation is the air of the outside temple air invalidate sacrifices. It says, okay, it's an outside force that's invalidating it, but it's actually the sacrifice itself is intact. So when you sprinkle the blood, so the laws of Me'ila are still applicable to this, which means that originally it was Kodesh Kadashim, and now it's going to be, the laws of Me'ila fall off it, because the blood was sprinkled, and that's effective on the remnant of the animal that happened to be outside the temple where it wasn't supposed to be. Abel Chisaron, but if it's not intact, that's much worse. The Psula de Gufeyu, that's you're missing from itself. It's not an outside force, outside temple air that's invalidating. Itself isn't intact. Then the offering of the kaimetz is not going to be effective. We're going to say that, of course, there's going to be no pigul here, and there's going to be no me'ila here. There's going to be it's going to be the original me'ila will still be here. The laws of me'ila, which normally would have receded, are not going to drop. It's still going to be regular me'ila. That's the opinion of Rav Huna. Amalei Rava. Rava says exactly the opposite, right? Yeah. Okay. Rava says, Adarabba, on the contrary, you told me about the opinion of Rabbi Akiva that holds that Zrika helps for Yotzei. I'm going to tell you exactly the opposite. I'm going to tell you, Afilu Rabbi Lazar, Damar Ein Zrika Me'elas Liyotzei. Even according to Rabbi Lazar, that holds that if something leaves the temple, then we say that the Zrika that was done inside the temple is not effective on that. And it's whatever its original status was, where there would be Me'ila. It's still there. The Zrika doesn't help it because it's not around. So Hani Mili, but that's only Yotzei, blessed Bifnim, because it's not here. Aval Chisaron Disa Bifnim, but if it's just lacking, if it's just not intact, but the fact is whatever's here is here, so it's inside. Mahani Le'aktara, the Aktar is going to work. Exactly the opposite of Rav Huna. Rabbi Lazar is saying is that everything is going to be effective. But yes, sure, it's going to turn into pigul, and it's also going to be the laws of Me'ila are going to drop because the kaimetz was offered, even though you can't eat it, but the fact is it's still intact. Okay, so now Amar Rava. this was the hard part. This is what I get stuck in. I'm not sure if we'll be able to work it out. You'll help me with your. I'll use a commentary here. Let's see if it works. Rashi would work, but I think it says a mincha. But you have to go through the Rashi. Rashi was like lengthy in this, and had to do it a few times. So let's take a look. What are we holding? 12a. Amar Rava. Rava says, Mina Aminala. Where do I say that even if there's chaser, if it's lacking, that it should still be effective, the haktara, that it will still have the loss of pigel, and it will still have, and the loss of me'ila will drop. Where do I get this from? He says, I can learn it from the Mishnah. The Tanan, well, actually, from the Mishnah and the Bryce of Reb Chia. The Tanan, our Mishnah says, when we learned it with the Mishnah, it says that the Kmitza is you do the Kmitza, and while he's doing the Kmitza, he has intention to eat the remnants outside the temple, and then we add in, or a kazayas of the remnants outside the temple, or a kazayas, right? That's what we said. So then we say that there's going to be no karis because it's bachutz. V'tani Reb Chia. Reb Chia teaches the same Mishnah. You know that Reb Chia was the one that authored the Brises, right? Reb Chia and Reb Shia. They were what Rebbe did for the Mishnayos. Reb Chia did for the Brises. So Reb Chia teaches a very similar text of this Mishnah, but he changes something. And Reb Chia doesn't say or a kazayas on it. He says someone that does kmitza on the mincha with and he has intention to eat the shirayim bachutz. He doesn't say or a kazayas of the shirayim bachutz, or a kazay or an olive size of the remain. He leaves out that or an olive size. Now my time laitania kazayas. What's the reason why Reb Chia left it out? Why did he deviate from the standard text? That's what they say over here. Diverge from the standard text. My time laitania kazayas. Lav kagain shechasru shirayim b'kamala kazayas. If it would say oy kazayas, then I would understand that it was chaser, that it was lacking. Why are you saying or kazayas? So there's a possibility. There's two possibilities. One possibility is the mincha is intact, but you have thoughts of doing other things with the rest of it. Only one kazayas, you're going to do something. You're going to do what's prohibited with. You're going to eat it outside, but the rest of it's still intact. But there's another possibility. Kazayas of the shirayim means because the mincha is not intact, then I only have one kazayas left. So the reason why Reb Chia doesn't want to say oy kazayas is because there's a possibility that it's talking about oy shechaser, that it's lacking. Now Rava held that if it's lacking, it still works. Mani le'aktara. So lav going shechaser shayim kamala kazayas. Ukivan de matan keli. When it comes to putting it into the vessel, behiluch, by walking it up to the altar, ba'aktara le'masnelei, he doesn't want to teach the phrase of oy kazayas ashirayim. Therefore, b'kamitzanami lechol shirayim leitani kazayas. Now, why is this? Why doesn't he want to do that? Because that would be shirayim shechasru ben kmitza la'aktara. After the kmitza, if you would say oy kazayas, then that would mean that right now you're lacking it. And what happens now when you offer it up on the altar? Huge notes. What happens now when you offer it up on the altar? So then, according to Rava, it's still valid. it's not valid, but the offering it up could still make it pigul. The Ketani Seifa. So 1 second. And since he can't say it at the end, because that would be Shiraim Shechasr ben Kmitza Laktara, so he doesn't say it by the Kmitza as well. Uktani Seifa, but nevertheless we say in the Seifa, Pigul v'chevel l'karas, al mamahane lo Aktara. I think what Rav is doing is he's telling me from the fact that Reb Chia leaves it out teaches me what our Mishnah holds. Reb Chia didn't want to teach it, but our Mishnah must hold that when it says like Kazayas in our Mishnah, that must mean that Shirayim Shechasr ben Kmitza Laktara, that if the remnant was lacking, nevertheless there still would be pigul if he has thoughts of that whatever's left of that he's going to eat whatever's left. He's going to eat whatever's left out of its allotted time, and then he offers up the kaimetz, so that haktara that he's doing is still effective. Amalei Abaya tells him, yeah, you with me? However, intention for the halva where the kaimetz actually became deficient. The last three of it. Okay, since in the second section the meaning of intention not the same, so Pia didn't include it. Now Pia doesn't dispute the ruling of. Oh, they're adding in that Reb Chia is not arguing on our Mishnah. So why didn't he say exactly what our Mishnah says? I'm not sure. But okay, whatever the case is, what we're learning is based on our Mishnah that the haktara of even if it's lacking is still effective. Amalei Abaya says to Rav Eloi, you got it wrong. There's really no proof from what it says oy kazayas in the Mishnah, because Hamani Rebbe Elazar, it's actually the opinion of Rebbe Elazar. The Tanana kaimetz v'alavayim v'haktara v'haktara minchas Mashiach minchas nesachim shikar v'achsmem kazayas b'chutz chai Rebbe Elazar paiter shak v'skuli. The reason why Reb Chia didn't say it is because Reb Chia would be following Rebbe Elazar. It's not because of a din that what's happening here when you say oy kazayas, it means that it's chaser. That's what we're getting from Reb Chia. When it says oy kazayas, it means that it's lacking. But why are you saying only kazayas? It must mean that the rest of it got lost. This is no. If we're saying oy kazayas, or we don't say oy kazayas, because if it's only a kazayas, Rebbe Elazar would say that's not effective. It needs to be everything. If someone has intention to do one of the services outside, so it has to be the full service, not a kazayas of the service. It has to be the full service. So Rabbi Elazar would say that thought is insignificant because it wasn't the full service. You're not chayiv anyway, so there won't be. It's not considered real chutzlam kaimet. But even the baktaras kmitza leimasnei kazayas mikam to bachutz b'shoyim nami leimasnei kazayas. Since when it comes to the haktara bachutz. So we also don't say by the shirayim as well. We need to keep it consistent. Either Rabbi Elazar, if it's according to Rabbi Elazar, then it should have said both. Because according to Rabbi Elazar, in order for the mincha to be valid, you have to offer up the kaimetz and the levina. And here we didn't say that. We just said thoughts of offering the kaimetz. The Tanana kaimetz v'alavayna shikar v'sechem mem b'chutz chayiv Rabbi Elazar paita at shak v'shneim. The only way you'll really be chayiv with doing this, the mincha outside the temple, is if you do both the kaimetz and the levina outside the temple. So it's like nitzchal kaimetz the minchas chayte. We're talking about where there was no levina. It's levina. We're talking about a minchas chayte, which is a carbon chatos, where you don't add the levina. The Gemara says vichbal tano asmin kaimetz minchas chayte. And where the Tana goes through this whole thing just to tell me about one mincha, where there's no levina. It says that's a possibility. Rabba then said, Lav Nosi da Amri. What I told you before is not actually a good raya. Tanya. Okay, let's leave it at Hada Rabba. We'll do that tomorrow. So just a few lines before the Mishnah. Fine. Okay, have a good day, everyone.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Hatzlacha.
Okay, you too.